Good afternoon, welcome to Rock Talk. I'm your host, Willie.
And I'm your host, Kayla.
This is part 2, and we're going to go over the agenda with Don.
Hello everyone and welcome. The second part or series is what I call the agenda stage. And what the agenda stage is, I want you to think of a lawyer, a doctor, or any other professional. This is the transition stage that we've gone through in first stage, obviously meeting with the family, dealing in hospitality, checking the temperature where they're at, but now what we're doing is we want to actually take control of the sales situation temporarily. And it's about a 7-minute to 10-minute process. But this is where you're going to sit down with a family and you're going to tell them how we go about this. So it is what I call the agenda phase. So there's a real trick, and I don't want to call it a trick, but it's a simple way of going about how you transition to get control. And how you get control is you simply, guys got a clue what I'm going to ask?
No.
You simply ask for, do you mind, family, that if I give you an overview, a 30,000 foot overview of how the process works. So you're asking the family for permission to give your agenda.
Okay.
Okay? So why would we do that?
So that they know what they're getting into?
Correct. If you went into a doctor's office and you had an ailment and the doctor just simply started running tests on you and didn't tell you what you were going to do, you wouldn't have a clue
What's going on? Right.
So you both have, how many people have ever bought a monument before or anything? And the last thing you want to do is have somebody assume that you know what you're actually going to be going through. So
Okay.
you have to explain. If you're a doctor, you're going to say, well, Kayla, what we're going to do is we're going to come in and we're going to run a series of tests on you. We're going to look at this, we're going to look at that. And after we get all this blood work done and all the EEG and the EKG and all this stuff, then what we're going to do is I'm going to look over and review everything. And if I have any questions, I'm going to go to my colleagues. And then we will meet and we'll walk through all our understanding of where you're at, and then we will come up with a game plan, and that sounds fine. A lawyer, you're going to do the same thing. So I think the most important thing here is to position in your mind that you're a professional. You are an educator, you are a teacher, you're worthy of a doctor, and you're worthy of a lawyer level. And so the simple way is to ask the question, do you mind if I give you an overview how this whole process works?
Okay.
Okay. From there, we want to break into keep things very, very simple. So when we go through the memorial process, there are essentially 2 major broad decisions. What are they?
In the memorial process, who is it for?
Okay, well, we had that up in the initial
Okay.
stage, but we are going to have what goes on the stone.
Oh, okay, you're looking at the actual in-depth,
Mm-hmm.
almost the product base now,
Mm-hmm.
of what goes on it and how it's done.
Yeah, so you did hit one of them. Do you know what the other one is? He said product. We're going to talk about the physical aspects of
Shape,
product.
size, and color.
That is, and under the product category. The other thing is going to be what you do every day.
Design.
Design. We're going to talk about the elements that go on the stone, the
Okay.
story in stone, the people's lives. We have over here a creative element, and over here we have product design. So we are going to be talking about those 2 elements. So when it comes to design, we have either wording and lettering or design work that tell the story. So Kayla, when it comes to a person's life story and you go through designs, what are common design elements that you see in daily work?
Religious symbols, flowers, birds, deer.
Bucks and ducks.
Yeah, pretty much.
I see that. And so Willie tells us a story of bucks and ducks. When it comes to males, yeah, bucks, ducks, fish are very common themes. Females will tend to be a lot of roses and flowers and obviously religion from a spiritual point of view. So in your design book, you will have what we call the 8 main categories of a person's life, the creative expression. And they're listed on pages 10 and 11. And the most common of all things is religion. The next most common is probably interests and hobbies. And the third area, which most people do, is work. Especially rural people love farmers, love their tractors, they love their farm scenes. But we have much more than that. The story of life deals with family heritage, one's civic contributions to life, all those other categories that go. But I think the most meaningful of all categories is the character and traits. The story, the lessons learned, the treasures that somebody gave alive. So over here on the agenda phase, we have the creative story. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to sitting down with a family and discussing the creative story and how they want to portray their life story in stone. And I think it's important that we focus on the life, not the death, because it is really our contribution to humanity, our connection to people, that is the most salient, the most important aspect.
So with that being said, if someone were to come in and you're sitting down and you're visiting with them and they do want a buck or a duck, do you ask why?
Yes, but you have to be very careful on how you do that. And again, that goes back to the first lesson that we had, a genuine interest in people and a genuine concern. You're not here to preach, you're here to discover, you're here to find. So one of the things that I would say is, Willie, I noticed you liked a fish design. And the reason for that fish design, I would suspect that you always went fishing with grandfather.
Yep.
And those were important times.
Yep.
So it's not the fish that was so important to you, is the story behind the fishing.
Right, got it.
Okay.
Yep. I just wanted to clarify if you've ever...
So what I would do in that case is, if it's just meaningless, it's a guy's hobby and no one else is connected to it, then you would ask the question, well, I want to make sure that this is appropriate. Does this tell his whole story?
Okay.
Is this all he was defined from? And I find when, Kayla, this might be a good question for you, you design every day and sometimes you see things you go, oh, I can't believe they're putting that on a stone.
There's been times, yeah. Few different things. None coming to mind right off the top of my head.
When they do put some pretty bizarre things, or what we would consider bizarre, and do you ever hear the meaning behind it and actually shocked on why they do it?
Typically, no.
Yeah.
I don't really get to hear the backstories on a lot of the stuff I design. So I'm not sure what the meanings behind things are.
I had years ago, I had a guy put a snapper riding lawnmower on his stone, and I literally said to myself, my God, if my life is defined by a mower, I've lived a shallow life. But with that said, this was one of the most freeing and greatest things in this guy's mind. He just loved to mow lawns, and that was when he felt most connected, literally in a spiritual sense, with God. When he was out mowing his lawn, he was in heaven, and he just found great joy in it. And he wanted the snapper lawnmower on there. And you go, okay, as long as it has meaning and purpose behind it, that's great. So again, the agenda phase over here is creative, and all you're using is stories to illustrate the creative aspects. So we're going to be going through your story. The second one is what you both said, and that was product. And product is simply going to be delineating, there's three things that make up the price of a product. One is,
Color.
and how does that affect cost?
Well, it's determined by how much is yielded out of a quarry.
Yeah. So again, how do you make that simple? You have to make that story very simple. So give me an idea of how you would make granite color varies in cost by color as it relates to the quarry yield.
Right. The more they can use, the less the cost.
Mhm.
The less they use, the higher the cost.
Yeah. So if you're a guy, guys understand things really simply, like oak is different than pine in the wood species, and women might understand that a cubic zirconium is different than a diamond or a sapphire or a ruby.
Right.
They may not understand the whole dynamics, but you're just trying to get it. Most people think it's about freight, and it's not about freight at all. It's about rarity, and how plentiful something is determines the cost of granite. And that is the biggest element, correct?
Right. Yep.
Of changing costs. The second thing is how big it is, right?
Right. Yep.
And so you make it twice as big, does it make twice as expensive?
No.
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 No, it doesn't. And so you would simply say to the family that you're gonna have three distinct elements that change the price. Number one is gonna be the product color, and you're gonna explain that. Then you're gonna go into size. You're gonna say size is the next dynamic. It does vary price, but not quite as much as color does. I can change the cost of a monument by double by just changing color. But if I double the size, I don't. I'll probably go up 70%.
Okay.
Okay? And the third element is what?
Shape.
Yeah, absolutely. The amount of workmanship in cutting and shaping the stone. And so, you know, what is the least expensive finish?
Rock pitch.
Okay. And then what would be the next most? I'm going to have more labor into it. So now I'm going to
Cut
Cut
and
it.
polish.
So cut, polished, a shiny or polished finish is more than a rough finish. If I have a straight cut, is that not easier than a curve cut?
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So those things build more workmanship and labor into the cost of a memorial, and therefore it goes up. So now we've just planted out the agenda, and we planted out the whole dynamic. Again, that whole process that we talked here and we go through really should take place in about 5 to 10 minutes. Again, stopping the family, asking permission. Is it okay if I give you an overview of how this process works? When they say yes, then what you will do is give the agenda. There's two main decisions that you're gonna have in your memorial. One is
Design.
creative, okay, the design, the elements, the wording that go into it, and the other is a physical decision, product, color, shape, and finish. Those are your two main categories. Under the creative process, we are going to have lettering and we're gonna have designs. When we talk about lettering, we will give examples like epitaphs, date of birth, date of passing, given names, not given names, children's names, heritage,
Marriage dates.
maybe a poem, song, Bible verse, whatever those things are. Those are all creative wording elements. Design elements are everything from faces to bucks and ducks and flowers, and you know, you turn around with an expert like Kayla, who has just an enormous talent of taking a dream sequence or a family's thought process and creating that into a design, something that some of us don't have that creative aspect, and you just go, wow, this is great. So a lot of times when you as a counselor working with a family, you don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be able to communicate to us what the family is interested in, and what they're trying to convey, and then give some artistic license to our creative team like Kayla to come up with those things. Once we do that, and we walk through that the elements of price. What you're gonna do now is you're gonna then go into a next phase of selling.
Okay.
And the next phase of selling is literally, I have given you agenda. I am going to simply ask if you have any questions. Did everything make sense? And if you're long in the tooth like me that has dealt with thousands of families over 35 years, you will learn very quickly that families and people do not listen well. You will learn that over and over and over. So you will learn that simplicity, clarity, speed in which you speak, putting things in absolute, visual, easy, auditory terms are really teachable things. The kinesthetic aspects of handing them a book, showing them, and really in the front of your book is all designed to be a helpful sales tool for you to trigger your mind on what to talk about. So it's not something that you really have to practice and practice. It's something that is an agenda-based thing. When we get there and we get to that next level, we are then going to get into talking about them. The whole focus of the transition is you quit talking, and now you're going to ask them who, what, why, where, and when. Tell me about mom, tell me about dad, tell me about yourself, or whoever the memorial's for.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have, in hearing through this, any questions, any things that are good points that maybe make?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, especially for the audience too. So, video is kind of long, but if I heard this right, the first part should be about 3 to 5 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and the second part should be about 5 minutes.
Fine,
So we're talking 8 to 10 minutes.
correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure because we explained a lot for 8-minute time segment on how it actually works in reality.
And what we hope to do is illustrate that by obviously at some point filming the process in real life so you can get just a reference point, but it's not as hard. Willie started out in sales, and when he came from a manufacturing environment and now moved into a sales environment, and about 9 months into it, really started to grasp or get traction that this wasn't as much about product as it was
About the emotional aspect of everything. Most definitely. More people are apt to talk about their loved one, and I feel like they actually tune out when you start bringing up the product. They're curious on what they're purchasing, but they really want to make sure that the emotional aspect is memorialized on the product that they buy, if that makes sense.
That's an excellent observation, and otherwise it really doesn't have a lot of meaning because we're just marking a grave.
Right.
Kayla, from your perspective, how do you speak to that?
I would agree with Willie. I mean, yeah, families want to know that the product that they're buying is good quality and everything like that, but really the whole meaning behind purchasing a monument is remembering and memorializing someone's life. So really the physical stone itself isn't what matters, it's what goes on the stone.
Yeah. And so when, as we invite you to go through this process and you reflect on it, if you have any questions, our staff is always available. It is a life endeavor to be a good people person, to work at those skills. They're not easy skills. We only have to look at the dysfunction within our own families to realize how hard sometimes it is to communicate. A brother or a sister may misunderstand or misinterpret what we said. So you have an added problem here is the fact that we're dealing with a subject of grief, we're dealing with emotions, we're dealing with loss and pain. So when you think about this, we're giving a very good gift to a family when we sit down and we use this approach. Why? We're taking away a lot of the questions on price right up front.
Right.
we're answering 90%, 95% of the normal questions that people would have. Instead of you reacting to a family, you're proactive and you're going through how this all works. Again, trying to get to a good human relation, a good communication element as quickly as possible in the sales thing so you can get to the heart of the matter, and that's the story of whoever you're memorializing.
Right. And actually, with that being said, that was the biggest aspect that I personally learned is the one question. And it's so simple. What's your story? And ever since I kind of got over my fear, because I feared asking that, thinking of the backlash, oh my God, I screwed up. But ever since I asked that opening question just led into, sometimes you'll get the 4-hour conversation, but that's not bad. But then you kind of wrap your head around everything that they're talking about. Next thing you know, they're happy that they got the memorial that they wanted.
And that leaves me, and I leave it to you to close this, Kayla, but that leaves me to the thought that being compassionate and empathetic are not bad things. Being a good listener is not a bad thing. You don't have to really worry so much of what you say if your heart's in the right place. It will follow itself. It's not that difficult of a process. So again, do not think of yourself as a salesperson. Think of yourself as a decent human being who wants to educate, teach, and learn about how to tell a life story and so on.
Yeah, I would agree. Just be yourself, be interested in what the family has to say, and listen to them, let them kind of run the appointment, and they'll be much more happy when they leave the door.
Good. Well, thank you.
Thanks for viewing Rock Talk. Thanks, Don. Just want a heads up, the next 2 videos coming out, one will be on the price book, and it's going to be something similar to the manufacturing video. And then another one is I'll be hopping in a boom truck with one of the setters, and I'm going to videotape the whole setting process.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks for viewing Rock Talk, and have a great day. Cheers.
I always
We're not actually going to save this as an outtake because remember he was such a savant with words.
we actually
No idea what that means till we get into it.
We are live. Good.